We've come up to the top of the hour. Delighted to welcome you all to today's webinar, which is the first one in Webinar Week, and that is 7 ways to improve customer satisfaction, which I think is certainly proved to be a very hot topic from the registrations we've had so far. So I'd like to run through the agenda. I'm delighted to introduce you a new speaker, Jerry Brown, who is the customer lifeguard. So hopefully you can throw out a lifeline to us all. Jerry, what do you do as a customer lifeguard?
Well, Jonty, I realized as a customer that we were not getting the service we deserve. I've been involved in technology for quite a while, and must put my hand up here and admit that I was part of the Genesys team for many years, which I enjoyed very, very much. And I realized, though, that coming at it purely from a technology perspective was not necessarily the best starting point. So I found that when you started looking at some of the challenges that companies have with customer experience, a lot of it came back to some very fundamental aspects. And so I decided to focus on that and start to work with organizations to look at those fundamental aspects, which I sort of put into 4 basic categories, which were culture, communications, commitment, and community, and then to align those with the technology. So I think today will be a great opportunity to sort of bring together the strategies that I think are important in customer experience with the appropriate technologies that organizations like Genesys can bring to the table. I found that once you begin to bridge those 2 things together, organizations are much more prepared to invest time and effort in their customer experience and realize that it's not as difficult as it needs to be. Yes, it can be complex. Yes, it can take some time. But if you start with the basics and bring in the right and appropriate technologies at the right time, then I found it can be very, very effective.
Wonderful. We're also joined today by Megan Jones on the news desk. Hi, Megan.
Hello, Jonty and everyone.
Hi. And Megan's going to be taking us through the top tips and questions from the audience, be monitoring the news desk. And delighted to be joined again by Brendan Dykes from Genesys. Brendan, what is your role within Genesys?
So I now work in an area which everybody tends to want to hate, which is called marketing. But my focus is on the whole area of omnichannel, particularly how the multi-channel, omni-channel story works across various industries. So I've been particularly focused today on meetings around government and how we can face into government. Historically, I worked in consulting. I've spent a lot of time in the field with customers, and I actually was a customer of Genesys 10 years ago. So I have a long experience in the customer service and contact center business.
So poacher turned gamekeeper, indeed. So let's have a look. If we can all log into the chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat. That'll be running alongside. It is on a separate screen, but a lot of people like to put the webinar on one side of the screen, the chat room on the other, so you can see both at the same time. And when you're logged into the chat room, you can get a copy of the webinar slides from this link. It's just on the top right-hand side where it says download webinar slides. Just click there and you can get both presentations there, and you can also get hold of a copy of the chat log. I'd like to start off the kickoff though with a poll. We're looking at 7 ways to improve customer satisfaction, so I'd just like to find out how you measure customer satisfaction, and just like to ask the question, do you do it through a routine sample of the customer base? Do you do it through a post-contact survey, and you can answer more than one answer? Do you do it through monitoring social media or review sites? Do you do it through looking at customer retention, measuring the numbers of customers leaving, or do you not measure it at all? So if you can just highlight those answers through, that would be great. And I don't know if Jerry, if you got any thought about which one would likely come up top.
Well, it's an interesting one. I think people, I'm going to mention this briefly later on, but I think that routine sampling of customer base is becoming one that's a little bit dated. I think post-contact survey I would like to see come up, because I think it's important that is done as quickly as possible, and there you go, thank you. But I think that is one that is having the most effect because people, as Brendan mentioned, customer experience memory management is important. And getting to people before they have a chance perhaps to tell others of a bad experience, and equally if you want them to tell a good experience, but getting to them early enough to make whatever adjustments are necessary and recover the situation is absolutely critical. And the best way to do that is to have a survey as quickly as possible.
So post-call survey 70%, followed by 49% routine sample of the customer base, 35% through monitoring social media, 28% through customer retention, and 8% don't. Brendan, this seems quite a low number of people measuring customers leaving or using that as a measure of customer satisfaction. I was surprised it's as low as that.
Yes, I guess 28% is a measure, but I guess some companies aren't even in a position to be able to measure it. They don't actually know what the retention rates are like. In certain industries, for example, retail, it's very difficult to measure those sorts of measures. More so, I guess, with online and with banks and telcos. But 28% did seem low to me as well.
Yeah, I guess that an interesting point because retaining customers on retail may be different, and if you have a solution that people only buy once for a period of time, that may not be so appropriate. So I'd like to just drill down now in customer satisfaction and ask you in the chat room, in one or two words, what are the barriers that are stopping you from improving customer satisfaction? Just one or two words. So is it things like budget? Is it resource? Is it conflicting priorities? Is it time to do things? Let's have a look at some of the results coming in. Nisha said it's systems. Steve has said different customer purchase cycles make it very complicated. Helen has said systems. Michael had said system restrictions. Donna said third-party suppliers. Karen has said lack of desire to change. And Tom says having a place where satisfaction can be measured through various channels. So I guess that's challenges with reporting. So let's have a look at Phil is saying processes. Gabriella said cost and system restrictions. Steve is saying not enough pain for the business. So I guess if there's enough pain, it will come through. We've got a few more people typing through. But Jerry, it sounds like systems and technology is the one thing that's holding a lot of people back from improving customer satisfaction. And I don't think that would be particularly the answer I would have got 5 years ago.
No, I think you're right, John T. And again, I'll be touching on this briefly in a minute, but I think it is one of the challenges. As I said off the top, while I don't necessarily believe starting with technology is the place necessarily for customer experience strategy, it often ends up being one of the places that people have challenges. And I think that it's sometimes an easy target, but the reality is if you can have people that are very, very motivated to do the right things, but if they don't have the information in place and don't have the capabilities of doing that, then all their good efforts can go down the drain very quickly.
Yeah, we've got a couple of other answers coming through. Clifton says procedure restrictions with third-party delivery and supply. I guess that if you're using outsourcers, that can make it more difficult. And inability to monetize customer satisfaction, says Mark. Lack of processes, Claire, and budget, says Mark as well. So we're going to hand across now to Jerry, the customer lifeguard. And Jerry, are you going to take us through your first of the 4 ways to improve customer satisfaction?
Well, thank you, John T. Good afternoon and good morning to those of you who are calling in from the U.S. and Canada and other places where it is still early. Measuring customer satisfaction is often as unreliable as election polls, and the downside of believing what people say they'll do and their actual actions can have many politicians and business people eating their hats or even eating their kilts. That will resonate perhaps more with our UK audience. Mick Jagger's plaintive cry from 50 years ago still rings true for many of us when we've had a bad customer service experience. While what he wanted to meet his needs may not come up too often in customer experience discussions, well, perhaps the white shirt will. I'm sure we've all felt equally frustrated when we don't get satisfaction from the companies we do business with. I think part of the problem is the term customer satisfaction and the word that makes up half of it. It's become very popular with the sultans of semantics who dissect customer experience and the terminology used to question whether or not we should get more than satisfaction. That just being satisfied isn't enough, and that we need to be surprised, delighted, thrilled, enthralled, or otherwise brought to a state of neurexity in all of our customer experiences. A number of pundits, often our American cousins, tell us that we should settle for nothing less than legendary, rock star, magical, memorable service. And I don't totally disagree with them, as I really do like to get delighted every now and then myself. But while it's an honorable and bold objective, trying to do that with every customer, every time, in every situation, is positively fatiguing for all concerned. But it is important to know what delights or dissatisfies customers, and being able to recognize when you need to step up. If employees are encouraged to look for these opportunities and empowered to act on them when they appear, customers will be delighted at the right time for the right reason. These exceptional service experiences will provide customers with positive good news stories about the company, and eventually the company will build a reputation that stands it apart from the competition. And when it comes to delight, a little goes a long way, and even making it easy has its rewards. And a big part of the reason for that is that the bar is set incredibly low, especially for those services that we use every day. Trains, planes, fuel, energy, telecom, banks, where simply delivering the expected service is a daily challenge. But perhaps it's worth looking at the dictionary definition of satisfaction and some of the synonyms that go with it. I found three interesting definitions. So the first one is giving or enjoying a state of comfort. The second one is the fulfillment of one's wishes, expectations, or needs, or the pleasure derived from them. And the third one is somewhat legal in nature, but it's the payment of a debt or fulfillment of an obligation or claim. Now, no one could argue that those things aren't bad things to do. And when I looked at some of the synonyms, I found things like delight, peace of mind, serenity, pleasure, fulfillment, happiness, sense of well-being. And again, no one could argue that these aren't worthy and honorable objectives for any business. We all interact with a wide range of companies, dozens of times a week. And most of those service interactions are and should be routine. We want them to be pretty easy. Customers want service workers to be efficient, helpful, and pleasant. But the service interaction itself should not become the center of attention. It's the result that really matters. And while we're on the subject, satisfaction is no real guarantee of loyalty. There was a recent survey by Accenture, and it showed that of 8,000 home and car insurance customers surveyed in 14 different countries, 86% said that they were satisfied with their claims experience in the past 2 years. But 41% said they were still likely to, or very likely to, change insurers in the next 12 months. And the thing is, we have a number of ways to measure satisfaction, which also leads to confusion. Should it be CSAT or customer satisfaction, often done by the yearly survey? How about Net Promoter Scores, NPS, figuring out whether we'd be promoters or detractors? And then the customer effort score, which has become very popular lately, measuring how easy it was to do business with an organization. And they all measure different things in different ways and at different times. But for me, there's four key ways that, regardless of your unit of measurement or the business you're in, are critical to success. And the first of these is making sure that you empower your employees. And by making it personal or letting them be themselves, you can merely make a difference. Now, this is often an overused phrase. I accept that. And many times there are large gaps big enough to drive a Mack truck through between company ambition and employee reality. But the concept is critical to success. This is all about giving employees permission to engage with customers on an emotional and personal level and let them be themselves. Most of us naturally want to help others, and we come pre-wired with an attitude and a caring side that's ideally suited to achieving that objective. We all fundamentally know what's right and wrong and how we should treat other people. For those of us in the UK who've been thrilled by Poldark recently, John Payne's immortal and eloquent words, "Tain't right, tain't fair, tain't proper," will, I'm sure, inspire a generation of customer service people. But often organizations want to actively discourage any personal feelings or emotions from creeping into their employees' actions. And they expect their employees to put them in a drawer marked "not to be opened during business hours." Yes, there should be some guidelines. Of course, you don't want them giving away the store. But the customer service person owns the moment and has the greatest impact on the customer experience in the initial interactions. The best companies enhance their customer engagement by encouraging employees to build on these natural feelings and emotions and attitudes and to do the right thing for the customer. These organizations put the spotlight on these talents and believe if you can unleash imagination, encourage innovation, and build trust based on a simple human behavior and principles, then people will come together in a common purpose, and customers, employees, and companies all win. This puts the responsibility for great customer experience back where it belongs, in the hands or the voice of the people who deliver the service. Let them have the knowledge needed, the trust and freedom to use it wisely, and set them free to execute. In Oscar Wilde's An Ideal Husband, Lady Markby says, as a rule, everyone turns out to be someone else. But in the world of customer service, it's best to let them be themselves, because everyone else is already taken. It might be worth having a check, really, at this point, Jonty, just to see what other people think about empowering their employees.
Yeah, we're going to jump to a poll now, and just like to see how empowered your employees are. And in fact, a good friend of mine, Paul Cooper, who sadly passed away recently, said it's not empowerment unless you trust your employees. So I'd like to, I've got 5 statements here, and just like to see which of them apply to you. Do you have no individual average handling time targets for your agents? Can an agent offer £20 compensation on a call without needing prior approval? Do they have unrestricted access to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn during business hours? Can they eat or drink at their desks? Or is it none of the above? So just like to vote on there. I think this is quite an acid test of empowerment, and be interesting to see there. Jerry, any ideas which one you think is going to be the most common?
I'm hoping it's the £20 or some derivation of that. I think they're, that and Facebook and Twitter are important ones because, as I was mentioning earlier, quite often if organizations aren't aware of what people are saying about them, then and not having access to some of these, then it's a challenge for them to be able to know what's going on. So that would where I want it to be.
So I think quite a mixed picture overall. We've got about the highest there is 55% of actually thrown away individual average handling time targets, which I think is very encouraging. So can speak as long as needed to look after the customer. 53% can eat and drink at their desks. 36%, which I think is quite low, can offer £20 compensation without needing prior approval. 17% have none of the above. And 28% have unrestricted access to Facebook. Now, I'm not suggesting that you give free rein on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, but like you said, Jerry, that if people can't see what's being said on social media about the company, then it makes it very difficult for the company to respond accordingly. So some quite fascinating results there. So let's pass the baton back to you, Jerry, and if you'd like to carry through the next of your 4 ways to improve customer satisfaction.
Great, thanks, Naughty. So my second way is really to enable the organization, and this is where agility, flexibility, and adaptability can trump dumb rules. So what do I mean by that? Well, even if an employee is totally empowered, enablement means they have the right tools, the data, the knowledge, and the organizational incentives to overcome procedural roadblocks and really execute against your customer engagement strategy. So as an example, the reason I like the £20 or the something is that they have that ability to make that decision on their own. And it's about creating an environment in which employees are continuously provided the right information at the right time and the encouragement to take affirmative action and not be constricted by policies and procedures that worked fine in the 1950s. Of course, I do remember the 1950s, but aren't fit for purpose now. Customer-obsessed companies realize that customer service and the customer experience is not a one-size-fits-all operation, and align their processes and empower their staff to make sure that each customer interaction is personalized and satisfying. And the key to this is consistency. Just having these things in place is not enough. They've got to be used every day with every customer and available across every channel, which is really the true test of what we're now calling omnichannel. Often an employee is more than willing and able to address an issue, but doesn't have access to the information necessary to do that. Many businesses marred in a morass of legacy treacle and multiple disparate databases have zero real-time visibility into basic information such as contact history and current and past purchases. Failing to equip agents with the correct tools and latest technologies results in the loss of insight into the basic information needed to provide proper customer service and a resulting drop in customer satisfaction, if not business. And I wanted to give you an example of both the first and second ways, because one of the people that I do business with and have done business with for many, many years is an organization called Charles Tyrwhitt, and many of you may know that they are well known and have been for a number of years for selling great shirts and a number of other menswear products. And interestingly enough, as fate would have it, today through my mail, I got a new 10-pound off voucher. And what they do very well is they keep track of your customers. Nick Wheeler, who runs the organization, is very good about sending out a letter. I'm not sure he personally signed this, but he sends me out a voucher. Jerry, we haven't heard from you lately. Why don't you come and buy something from us? And recently I took advantage of one of these things and went online and bought some shirts, but found that the voucher code didn't work. Tried it a couple of times, finally gave up and completed the order because I wanted to get the shirts. And then I called in. What I was expecting to happen was I was expecting to find someone who said, sorry, we don't have access to that information. I'm in the contact center. That's an online order. But nothing could be farther from the truth. Firstly, the person apologized profusely for what had happened. She said, yes, I can see your order. I can see exactly what's happened here, Mr. Brown. Let me make sure that we apply that discount for you. And as a thank you as well, she said, I'm going to make sure that there's no charge for shipping of this order, which was another few pounds off. And while the amount of money didn't really matter, it was the way it was handled. And so she had access to all the information. She was, in other words, the organization was enabled, and she was empowered to make the right decision at the right time. And moments later, I got an email coming from her just confirming that and letting me know that that's exactly what was happening. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's the kind of service that you can deliver when your employees have the ability to do it and you have the information available to you. If we look at the next area that I think is important, which is engaging and communicating with customers. But it's got to be the right message at the right time, delivered by the right people, and getting the right result. And that's really what happened with my Charles Tyrwhitt experience. But in an increasingly commoditized world, organizations really have to see how they can differentiate themselves and how they can engage with customers. Connecting with customers on an individual, personal basis is often the missing piece in the engagement puzzle. And one example I'm sure we'll all have familiar with is when an online shopper has a problem at checkout, as I did. But unlike me, according to the Banyard Institute, the abandon rate currently stands at 68%, which is incredibly high. This means that if 1,000 people visited the site and added at least one item to their shopping basket, 680 will bail out, while only 320 will enter their card details and press the buy button. This represents a huge amount of lost business. Being able to alert managers and agents when baskets are abandoned at key stages of the journey, notably at checkout, is vital. Managers and sales agents can then look closely at the journey leading up to a basket being abandoned and can select high-value customers or customers that have bought specific products to make sure that they contact them and follow up to see how they can change what has happened. And what's interesting is there was a recent survey done of 75 UK retail businesses. And this survey showed that only one of them, just one company, contacted the customer in real time, either by phone or SMS or email, to find out why they'd abandoned. But identifying a customer having an issue in real time and conducting proactive support would greatly improve both the one-time customer experience and the full customer journey. Other studies have shown that when these customers are contacted promptly, this is often enough to recover the basket and win the business and significantly improve customer satisfaction. Another way that businesses don't make the most of customer engagement is with surveys. We touched on this a little while ago. We're probably all suffering survey fatigue in some way. And when asked whether online or via an IVR to fill out another survey, quite often we just decline. We can't be bothered. And I think the reason for this is quite simple. When was the last time that a company thanked you for taking part in the survey and shared the results with you? That's what I thought. It was a rhetorical question. But imagine if they sent you an email saying, Jerry, thank you for taking the time to complete our survey. As a result of the feedback that you and other customers provided, these are the changes that we've made to improve your experience with us. If you've got something like that, you say, wow, that's great. Something's actually happened. The time I spent on the survey, and whether that's one question or 10, you'd at least feel that that was a good result. So engaging and communicating with customers is absolutely critical. And doing it in different ways is what I think is the most important thing in this particular aspect of it. And then our last of my 4 ways, pardon me, is really to embed a culture of excellence. And this has got to be defined by the customer and refined by the people. And in order to do that, you must understand what excellence means and what great looks like. David Hume, a Scottish philosopher, said in 1757 that beauty is no quality in things themselves. It exists merely in the mind which contemplates them. This is equally true of excellence in any endeavor. The best and, in fact, the only arbiters of customer experience, or pardon me, of excellence, are customers. They will define what great service is and what satisfaction means to them. And they'll be the ongoing barometer of excellence in your business. So creating an environment where listening, hearing, and acting becomes second nature is critical to us achieving consistent high levels of customer satisfaction. But that's only half the battle. To truly be best in class and develop and embed this culture of excellence, organizations must effectively leverage their talent, technology, and metrics to proactively anticipate and fulfill customer needs and expectations. In a recent article entitled Defining the Human Touch in the Customer Relationship, Stephen Van Belleghem looked at 3 areas in which humans excel. This is their ability to add empathy, creativity, and passion to any interaction. He noted that creativity and innovation are uniquely human characteristics. It's smart for companies to allow human creativity to blossom in all phases of the customer relationship. You must allow all your staff to think creatively about improvements that can benefit the customer. And this is really where the 3 previous elements come together with this one and complete the story. Employees who are trusted, treated well, and empowered, have the tools and knowledge to succeed and the ability to use them wisely, and are held accountable but have authority, can really delight customers and make each experience, regardless of complexity, a memorable one that will have customers coming back to more. And even if customers can't always get what they want, they'll certainly get what they need.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, that was our first musical reference there, which is Mick Jagger's Can't Get No Satisfaction. And some interesting takeaways there, Jerry. And I wonder how many of our audience are putting emotions into a drawer called Not to be Opened while at work, and how many are allowing human creativity to blossom in all parts of the customer journey. So I think some very strong, very profound questions that you were asking there, Jerry. So thank you very much indeed for that. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump across to Megan on the news desk. And Megan, have you got any hints and tips coming through for us?
Hi, John T. Yeah, the chat room's actually been quite busy today. We've got an opinion here from Mark that says empowerment is such a major obstacle because very few bosses trust their employees with the necessary access to do more. One of my biggest issues was approval based on selling the executives on the idea that employees need to be trusted with more access to perform at a higher level of efficiency, befitting the changing demands of customers. Jerry, is that quite common, empowerment being a big obstacle?
Yes, it is, Megan. And I think one of the things that happens, and when I talk to businesses, quite often the senior management say, oh, yes, all of our employees are empowered. Of course they are. And then if you ask the same question of the employees, you find that they have a very different answer. And of course, empowerment is another one of those expressions or words that has different connotations to different people. And quite often, in the example that I gave, or the example certainly in retail, is where a customer wants to send something back or wants a refund, and the question or the survey question was asked about whether or not they have that level of empowerment. That's always a good way of putting it. And if you look at organizations that are successful with this, and probably one of the best examples is Ritz-Carlton. Every employee at Ritz-Carlton, whether they are the general manager or they're working, cleaning the toilets, have the ability to spend $2,000 a day to make sure that a customer is happy. Now, I recognize that's in a slightly more deluxe environment and perhaps a high-value environment, but it doesn't really matter. It's the principle and the idea that counts. And whether it's $2,000 or 20 pounds, the ability for someone to make a decision on their own, knowing that it will be fully supported, is absolutely vital.
Okay, thanks for that, Jerry. We've had a tip in from Alison that says focus coaching with individuals can drive a significant shift in their CSAT scores and their motivation and engagement. And we've had an opinion in from Karen that says, love the comment peace of mind. It is an interesting concept coupled with customer satisfaction, in particular when linked with utility services, mortgages and other day-to-day transactions. We've had a tip in now from Nicole that says, treat employees like adults, and there is a surprising result in the amount of employees who actually act like adults. The people who have to be performance managed through abusing their nice-to-haves are often people who we find a challenge anyway. Is this another common trait in call centres, Jerry, actually trusting people to act like adults?
Yes, it is, Megan. And I think what people find is when they do it, when they really let them be themselves, more often than not, they're even tougher on people than the company would be. But I think they do it they come from a good place. And I think that once you start to allow people to do this, it spreads like wildfire. The fact that people can make the right decision, and most of the time they're not giving away the store. They're making, as this person has said, they're making adult decisions, and it's not always about saying yes to the customer. It's really about how you can say no sometimes, because it isn't always, yes, I'll give you everything you want. Sometimes it's necessary to have a dialogue with the customer, explain why you can't necessarily do what they want, but offer something that is a reasonable alternative, or at least something that is going to work. The worst expression or phrase I ever hear in customer service and customer experience is goodwill gesture. Anytime you want to put that in the garbage, you can go right ahead, because it's an awful, condescending phrase. And it's one of those things that really needs to be just put into Room 101.
Okay, thank you for that. Brendan, here's a question you might be able to help with. It's from Amanda. It says, how do you stop employees from abusing the extra access to social media? Is there anything in place to monitor that people can use?
I think there are 2 or 3 things. One is monitoring and let it be known that people are being monitored. Two is a culture which says, just make the culture that people behave like adults. I think that was interesting. One in the previous one. I was brought up in a culture for an organisation where the ethos was think like a customer and act like an owner. So you were expected to think as if you were the customer, but when you were doing stuff, you also had to act as if you were the owner of the organisation. It was your money you were spending, and you were behaving like you were a responsible person. And I think the third one is having some guidelines and some well published and regularly published guidelines on what's acceptable to be being done on the internet. If people know what the behaviour is expected of them, they're more likely to behave around them. And as Jerry said earlier on, there's always some people who are going to step out of line, and you have to manage those people.
Okay, thanks for that. There's a tip in from Steve that actually links into what you were saying earlier, Brendan, about making it big and real for your board of directors. Having been on both sides of the scale, being the sales and being sold to, is there anything you can give any advice on making these issues more real and getting the buy-in from the board of directors?
Yeah, I mean, I built business cases for buying customer experience, customer service systems. I've helped customers when I was in consulting to do the same thing. Too often the money side of it, how we're going to get the return on investment, is the big play. You need to make the problems big, and they need to make them real, and you need to be able to put some value around what that means. The non-calculable benefits are also worth having there, but unfortunately boards of directors are very much focused on show me the money and where am I going to get the value from. So I absolutely agree. You've got to make them big and real, and you've got to make them measurable if you can.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got a tip in from Mark that says, recently I just developed a quality of standards document for customer service departments, customer care, retail stores, and credit and collections. This document sets the level of workmanship expected from each department and the methods we'll use to measure the results towards meeting these standards on a consistent basis. The approval of the document is the easy part, implementation is the real work. And then we've got a final tip now from Kate that says, we put the team leaders on the phone so they can better understand how processes and systems slow things down and also help the team feel more supported. And I think that's all we've got time for now. If you want to pass back to Jonty.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. We're going to jump across to another poll, and it's going to be looking at journey mapping, which Brendan's going to be talking about in a little while. I'd just like to ask the question of the audience, when did you last do customer journey mapping? So did you do it in the past week? Have you done it in the past month? Have you done it in the past year? Have you done it in the past 5 years? Or have you never done customer journey mapping? It's where you plan the whole, map out the whole customer journey, look at all the contact points. So I think we've got most people have voted there. I'm just going to share the results up on the screen. 37% of our audience have never done customer journey mapping. 18%, which is very encouraging, have done it in the past week. 17% in the past month, 17% in the past year, and 12% in the past 5 years. So there's quite a mixture there, Brendan.
I'm intrigued by the 37% who've never done it. I guess there's still space and need for this, the concepts of this to get out there. And I think if I'm going to take the musical references a bit further, my reference is probably a little bit more up to date, and I'm bringing people up into the 1990s with the Manic Street Preachers, and one of their seminal songs, "Designed for Life." And it's interesting. The opening line of that particular song is, "Libraries gave us power," and in today's environment, it's not libraries that give us power or give our customers power, it's the internet. And the internet has allowed people to access and be able to do things that they've never been able to do. It's increased the number of channels in which they can contact organizations. It's given them the power to be able to shop whenever and at whatever time and from wherever they want. And it's given people the ability to complain and share the complaints globally, as we've talked about with the Dave Carroll story. And from that, the need to be able to design customer service, a design for life, a design for the customer life cycle, is driving a change in the way that customer experience and customer satisfaction is being considered. And out of that, tools like customer journey mapping are becoming very, very popular, because we need to be able to map out the experience that the customer is getting now in order to be able to improve it. And that's not just in one particular journey, but it's in the end-to-end customer life cycle. So a design for life is now becoming a critical part of the overall process. So I was interested by that result. Hopefully that other 37% will get onto it and look into the whole concepts of service design and designing an end-to-end service for their customers. We've had several thousand years of architecture and physical design, but the whole concept of designing services is fairly new. So I'm going to pick up on 3 more ways from beyond what Jerry was talking about. And mine are probably a bit more about how we take Jerry's ideas and apply them in a customer service environment. And traditionally, we have a set of channels which customers can use, and they might use the call center. And the call center is still very, very, very popular. We're seeing a lot of stats. I was looking at some stats the other day saying that the number of calls to call centers are not dropping. What is happening is, in fact, the complexity of calls is increasing instead, because online has taken a lot of the self-service away, but what's left is the hard stuff, the stuff that people cannot do. And too often the online environment's not set up to be able to get assisted service in the same way. Many organizations and structures have branches and stores, and those are quite often silos, parts even a different part of the organization, particularly if you look in banks. The branch network is often managed a long way from the call center. And so that silo often doesn't know what is happening around the branches and stores. Mobile has become a new extension from the online world, and in some organizations I've seen they've set up a new department to look after mobile, and yet again that's been very focused on self-service without thinking about how it fits into the overall story of the customer service. And in social media, often again being driven from another part of the organization, from marketing quite often, and we marketing people love social media. It gives us a chance to tell people about what great products and services we have, but we haven't necessarily picked up on the fact that customers are also wanting to be out there dealing with organizations from a customer service and customer satisfaction perspective. And finally, video, the new frontier for customer service and for customer engagement, an area where many organizations are exploring how they can use video, but are not necessarily thinking about how it fits into the overall story. And so being where the customer is very important, and being able to provide these services to the customer, but it needs to be fitted into an overall strategy around how we can deliver these channels. We need to be where the customer is. We need to be in the right channel for them, so the channel has to be available for them at the right time. Call centers can't always be open, but if they're not open, we need to be able to easily move them into another channel and provide them with an ability, if the call center isn't open, for example, to get a call back at a time when somebody is available and be able to book a call back. If the customer is online, being able to offer them assisted service through chat, for example, or a call back if somebody isn't available. We need to have the right channels for the particular service that they're looking for to be available. Not every channel works for everything. Complex queries, for example, are not necessarily very well handled in social media. It might be better for them to speak to somebody, to have an outbound call, or to phone a call center. Video is great in certain circumstances, but it might not necessarily be appropriate for other particular interactions. So we need to make sure that each of the channels we understand as part of this service design we've talked about, which is the right channel to be used for the right purpose. And when is the right time? When is the right time to make contact? Quite often, inbound contact is driven by a lack of outbound contact to keep a customer informed. So keeping the customer informed through the right channel at the right time quite often reduces the overall work. Sending somebody a text message to say that an appointment has been booked, sending somebody an email, making an outbound call to remind them that they need to make a payment. All these things, when done at the right time, actually reduce the cost to serve and make the overall experience better for the customer as well. And finally, it's making sure we have the right resources available, ensuring that the routing is set up to get the right understanding of what the customer is wanting and getting that contact to the right person at the right time. So being in the right place where the customer is at the right time is first and foremost a key element of this. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that into applying what we know about the customer as well. We all get very frustrated when we phone up an organization and they ask us things that we've told them a million times. things that they should know about us, things that they should understand about us. The corporate forgetfulness is often too apparent in organizations. Things that we know about the customer and prospect, what's important to them, what have they been doing, what products and services do they already have, what transactions and interactions are they engaged with at the moment, or have they been engaged with, which might be a reason why they're contacting us now. Where are they in that life cycle, that journey? If I do something wrong now, am I likely to make them leave the organization? If I do something right now, am I able to save them from perhaps looking elsewhere? Understanding what offers are available to that customer so that we can help to drive this empowerment of employees, giving the employees the knowledge which Jerry was talking about. Knowing what your resources you have available. Sometimes it might not be appropriate to be offering chat at this time because you haven't got agents who can use the chat service properly now. But if it's there all the time, customers are going to get frustrated because they can't get through to somebody just because it's showing that there is a chat session available. And you have to understand where this fits into your overall processes. What are your contact points across the process? Again, the right channel at the right point in the interaction process. And finally, what's that customer's importance to you? Not every customer has the same value. I know this isn't always a well-liked phrase, but we have to be able to focus on the high-value customers or the high-value points of the transaction first to ensure that we get the right service level to the people who are ultimately going to be buying our goods and services. But this context needs to be available not only within a channel, but it needs to be available across channels, because customers now will choose whichever channel is the most appropriate to them at any point in time. They'll start a conversation by going online. They may get in their car and phone up the call center. They may later on look on their mobile device. They may drop into a branch. They may say something on social research in the social environment. And so the context of where they are and all this context needs to be accessible across channel as well as within channel. And it needs to be available throughout the life cycle and across the journeys that the customer makes when it's relevant to them. So relevance is very important, and when it's applicable in the process. I worked for an organization in the mobile telephone space a few years ago, and we built a fantastic agent desktop which told the agent everything about the customer, but it was too much. It wasn't relevant to the agent at the time. It wasn't applicable to the process, and all it did was confuse the agent, and they just really ignored it. So we have to be able to use the context in an intelligent way as part of the overall process, and then we can be predictive. We can use the information we know about a customer in a predictive way. So we can say, are you calling about that loan application you've just made? Are you phoning about your recent bill? Being predictive with the context and information that we have helps to shorten the customer service cycle, helps to speed up the customer getting to the right advisor, and helps to make the advisor more efficient. And we have to use it when it can be delivered. So there's no point in having an offer available for a customer if that customer isn't actually able to take up that offer. It's no point in having a solution available to a problem that the customer hasn't yet encountered. So we have to make sure that we can deliver something that's appropriate to them at the time. And that allows us to create an omni-channel customer engagement, the right context in any channel at the right time. And ultimately, that's what we want to be able to do, to be able to manage the customer's experience, to be able to manage the memory of the customer so that they know that we are remembering who they are. Finally, we need to think about enabling that omni-channel engagement. How can we enable that? And that's looking back inside the organization. Again, we come back to the contact centers. We need to think about how contact centers are structured. We need to move away from geographical or a service-based to a skills-based model where the person who has the right skill is the person who gets the particular contact. It doesn't matter where they are, which department they're in, they are the best person to answer it. We need to engage the outsourcers into this overall process. Too often, outsourcers are a fire and forget approach. We just send things off to an outsource and we don't know really what's happening in the outsourcer's world. If we can get that inside our environment so that we're planning and predicting and workforce managing the outsourcer's resources, so we can see what they're doing, we can understand what their adherence is to schedule, we are going to get a better view of the service and we're going to be able to manage the service better. We have our branches and stores. Those people often have huge knowledge which isn't available anywhere else, and if we could only pick up on those skills, we'd be able to pass calls, emails, chats to somebody who's available somewhere else, like in the branches or in the back office in exactly the same way. And we have our home and remote workers. It's becoming very, very popular. Particularly we're seeing people who want to put out work that's not telephone based, but some of the work which is back office or non-call center work. And being able to manage those people and being able to make sure their work is included in this overall picture is important. And finally, self-service. I put it at the end because so many organizations are putting it at the very front. It's the most important thing to them, but it's just part of the overall story. We need to make sure that self-service is available, it's available in the right way, but it has to be built within a story of customer journey, which also allows the customer to get to assisted service. And so, again, we're going to create this view with the customer service at the heart of it, with everything built around it, based upon having the right resources available. Jerry was talking about the right message, the right time, the right people, and the right results. Exactly that, the right resources, the right skills and knowledge across the organization. So it doesn't matter where that person is. It doesn't matter where they are locationally. They can be anywhere in the world. And it needs to be context aware. It needs to be priority aware. So it's not only about knowing that this is an important, that we have this context about it, but how important is this to the person as well. It needs to be traffic volume aware. How do we manage the different channels? So if telephones aren't very busy, but there's lots of emails, can we move the emails into people who could handle those calls, those emails at the time instead of handling calls? And finally, it needs to be right resource aware, as we've talked about, the right skills to be able to support the engaging and communicating. And so that brought together allows us to be able to have this designed for life experience across the overall customer life cycle and across each individual journey. Jonty.
Wonderful, thank you indeed for that. I think there's some great comments in there. I loved the corporate forgetfulness. I thought that was something that a lot of companies are very guilty of, and not bringing enough context into transactions, particularly from a multi-channel perspective. If you're on the website, you go through security there, and then you've got the corporate forgetfulness comes in because you have to go through security all over again. There could be a better handoff there. I think could be there. So there we have. We've had some musical context there. Mick Jagger. What happens if your customers can't get no satisfaction? Brendan, you brought up Manic Street Preachers and a Design for Life, about designing the customer lifestyle. So hopefully if you follow some of those rules, probably the most appropriate one would be DREAM, and things can only get better, hopefully. So bonus question for the audience: who was one of the keyboard players for DREAM who is now a BBC TV presenter? Answers into the chat room. So we're going to jump across and have a look at top tips and questions from the audience. So Megan, what have you got for us in terms of tips from the audience? And Jerry, if after the webinar you could pick out the winning tip, would be great.
Sure.
Okay, we've had lots more tips and questions through. We've got one from Mark now that says, we need to change the way we think about frontline staff in that they're paid to work, not to think. Their input is invaluable, and with their constant interactions with customers, they can teach us more than we care to realise. Jerry, is this quite common, people in thinking that their frontline staff are just there to work and they're not interested in their opinions?
Well, I think it is, Megan, and I think you look at that there are some organizations that are recognizing how they go out and hire people, because that's really where it starts. And if you look at somebody like Metro Bank and organizations like that, so they're their mantra is hire for attitude, train for skill, recognizing that they can bring people up to speed in terms of capability, but they really can't train them on attitude. That's something they've got to come with it. And I think the story with Zappos, for those of you that know Zappos in the U.S., their people are when they start their training program, they go through 3 weeks of training, and at the end of each week, they're offered $2,000 to quit. And clearly, it's because they want to make sure that they're the right people. So organizations are getting it. People are realizing that the biggest challenge they've got is that when these people, all of the knowledge walks out the door at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time their shift ends, and they can't do that anymore. They've got to have people that contribute. And I think what Mark's put here is that their input is invaluable, and their constant interactions with customers, they can teach us more than we care to realize. And you can't really put a value on that. It's just something that you can't get that information any other way.
Okay, thank you for that. We've had another tip in from Laura that says, we map our customer journey nearly every day for each agent. We've got an opinion in saying, journey mapping has proved invaluable. Looking at our business processes through a customer lens is breaking down barriers, not least from within our own company, where colleagues like to work in silos and hold on tight to their processes. It's the way we've always done it. It's becoming a thing of the past when you help colleagues understand the impact to the customer. I've got another tip in now saying, don't benchmark against your industry competitors. You want to be better than them. Benchmark against other sector standards, personal experiences, etc. Look to be the John Lewis of your industry. We've got a question now. Brendan, if you want to answer this one. It's from Chris, and it says, does speech analytics help to increase customer satisfaction according to the experience?
From what we have seen, speech analytics is a fantastic tool to be able to understand what customers are saying and to be able to analyze, whereas traditionally you might analyze 10 interactions per agent per month, the ability to be able to analyze every interaction they make and pull out the key phrases that they've used and identify those and categorize them and report on them and analyze them is massively driving a change in the way that quality monitoring is being done and improving, always another tool for helping to improve the customer experience.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got an opinion in now from Nish that says, ensure your team leaders or supervisors manage by example. This can be the difference. And we've got another tip from Kate that says, we have gone back and looked at the training that we offered new team members and are going to split the training into 2 sections. Section 1, what you need to do the job, and Section 2 is about growing the skills and how the team member can use what they've learned to offer great service to customers. And a final tip now from Amanda saying, create a call listening library asking the listener to rate the call using the TMPS questions, and afterwards display the customer's actual feedback. It can be a real eye-opener. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for now. We're back to John T.
Wonderful, thank you very much for that. I'd be interested to know what the TMPS questions are. So if you could pop that into the chat room, we'd be very grateful. Well, I'm afraid that's more or less all that we've got time for today. Would be grateful though if you could type into the chat room in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about the webinar today? If you could put that into the chat room, please. Just a reminder that slides are also available on callcenterhelper.com. And as will be a copy of the replay if you'd like to go through the details today. That's callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. We have 3 more during our webinar week. Webinars coming up. We'll be looking tomorrow at how to integrate email, voice and chat into the contact center. But I'd like to thank our 2 speakers. Jerry Brown from the Customer Lifeguard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Jonty.
And Brendan, thank you for joining us again. Brendan Dykes from Genesys, thank you.
Thank you for letting me join you once more.
And thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And if you can just fill in the survey as you leave. Thanks very much for everyone. And Jerry, I'll give you a call to find the winner of the winning tip. Thank you. Bye.